Hey, it's Rob with Fandroid.com. I'm here with the Motorola Droid. We've been testing it out for a little while, and we're going to do a hardware review. But first, let's recap some of the specs. First of all, you've got a 3.7-inch WVGA touchscreen. It's capacitive, and it's got 480 by 854 pixel resolution. On the bottom of the phone, you have 4 touch-sensitive buttons: the back button, menu button, home button, and dedicated search button. And at the bottom of that, you've got the microphone along with the Verizon logo. On the left, you've got a micro USB port. On the top, you've got the 3.5mm headset jack and the lock and unlock button. On the right, you've got the volume rocker and the camera button. Above the touchscreen, on top of the Motorola logo, is the earpiece. To the top right of that, you've got the light sensor and the LED status indicator light. The touchscreen slides open to reveal a full 4-row QWERTY keyboard with a gold D-pad on the right-hand side. The back of the phone sports a 5-megapixel autofocus camera with dual LED flash, image stabilization, and 4-time digital zoom. Below the camera is the battery casing, which you slide down to reveal a 1400 milliamp battery. You must remove the battery to reveal the microSD card slot, which has a capacity of 32 gigabytes but comes with a 16 gigabyte microSD card. Below the battery casing is the speaker, which along with the D-pad and camera button both have a gold bronzes finish. All of this in a frame that's only half an inch thick and weighing a sturdy 6 ounces. So ultimately, what you want to know are what are my opinions about the Motorola Droid hardware. Let's start on a high note. What I think absolutely makes the device, and the reason that you're really going to want it, is the screen. This screen is awesome. It's 3.7 inches, but the colors are really, really bright, bold, and crisp. People saw it in one of my other videos and compared it to the G1, and the G1, they were like, oh, it looks so much brighter compared to the Droid, which is just crisp. The pixels are very crisp, and it looks very polished, where this is kind of more of a glow. This is a very pinpointed light, and you can see the pixels very clearly, so it's got a very professional look to it. It makes doing everything with the phone a lot more fun, a lot more entertaining, and a lot easier. From web browsing to looking at pictures, looking at videos, writing emails, playing games. I mean, you name it. You're doing everything interacting with the screen. So it's obviously an integral and most important part of the phone in general. One issue with the touchscreen is, if you'll notice on the side, in between the screen itself and the keyboard, there's a little bit of gap of air and space. And when you're actually interacting with the touchscreen and pressing it, you'll see this kind of squinch down, and there's a little, like a clicky sound to it. So there's a give to the keyboard that I'm not sure if that's intentional or not, but it doesn't feel as solid as it could. I would have preferred if this was not such a gap there, because it does give more of like a plasticky feel. And I'm not sure, but over time that could be a wear and tear issue as that gap builds. So one issue and one thing to look for with the touchscreen. But besides that, it's wonderful. It's big, bold, beautiful, crisp. The touchscreen is my favorite part about the phone. Besides the screen, the other most talked about element of the Motorola Droid is the slide out QWERTY keyboard. And you hear that click? It's a really satisfying click. It has a very smooth slide to it, and it slides open very smoothly, and then it just clicks into place. And the same thing happens when you close it up. So that is really nice, and I like the feel to it. I'm not a big fan of some of the layout decisions made, and that confident click into position might be partially to blame. If you look at the side, you'll notice about an inch or an inch and a half right there that's unused on the bottom. And when you look at the layout of the keyboard, you'll notice there are only 4 rows. So if this would open a little more up, maybe you could fit a 5th row in there for dedicated number row. As it is now, you've got to press the Alt button and then type or press the corresponding letter with the number above it anytime you want to use numbers on this hardware keyboard, which definitely slows down typing. The other thing is the keys are pretty flat, and you can see from a side angle they don't have much rise to them, and I'm not too concerned about that because this phone is super thin and it makes it much more pocketable. And in addition to that, the keys are pretty clicky. They've got a nice clicking feel to them, so you don't lose too much by them being flat. However, they are pretty small for the size of the phone in general, and they're close together too. Not to mention they're not staggered, they're in just straight rows, and it makes pressing the right button a little bit difficult. So it is kind of cramped for how big the phone is, and just in general, I'm a little bit of a bigger fan of the G1 keyboard. It's a smaller phone, but it's got the staggered keys. It has the spaces in between the keys. They're a little bit more raised up. Again, not a big issue, but it has this dedicated number row. And not only that, it takes place in a shorter horizontal amount of space, so your fingers don't need to go as much distance apart. So I prefer the G1 keyboard to the Motorola Droid keyboard, but it's still a pretty strong keyboard. On the bottom here, there are 2 blank keys, which is just weird to me. I think you could have used that space to come up to actually stagger the keyboard itself, or even have like a .com button, something. I just don't understand the decision to make them blank. And obviously, it makes the keyboard look more equal, and I just don't get it. You might as well use that for some functionality. I'm also not a huge fan of the touch-sensitive keys on the bottom. I would have preferred them to be hardware keys. It's the back menu, home, and search key. That being said, they're not terrible. They just have some sensitivity issues sometimes. Sometimes they're very sensitive. Other times you got to kind of press it a few times. And I think some of that is due to this space in between there. As you can see, when you're going to press a key, there is some give there. And I think that leads to some of the problems. So it's not bad, and it works the vast majority of the time, but every now and then you'll press it and it won't respond, and some of that could be on the software side as well. One thing I do love is this search key here. So if you press it one time, you're going to get this universal search with the keyboard right here, and you can go ahead and search, and it will search contacts, or you can get it to search the web or whatever, which is pretty darn cool. But even cooler is if you, and you can see that's there's a case right there. I had to press it a few times. But if you press this search key and hold it down, Android phones. And hey, look, Android.com. One thing you will notice about these buttons, see them light up? Watch how quickly they dim. And there they go. And you can set the backlight of the actual phone to never time out. Right now it's on never time out, but these touch sensitive buttons will still dim, and the same goes for the keyboard. So you can see the keyboard is illuminated now, and then it just dimmed, which isn't a problem when you're in the regular day, but when you're in the dark, it's great and you can see, but all of a sudden, a couple seconds later, you're in the dark again, literally. So the other elements of the phone, the 3.5mm headset jack, awesome. I listened to some music in the headphones. The sound quality was great. The sound quality of the speaker is really, really good, and it gets really loud, which is great, not only for speakerphone, but also for listening to multimedia. Up here, this light sensor is great because it allows you to put your phone on a setting that will automatically set the brightness of your screen depending on what it's like outside or indoors or wherever you are, and that can really conserve energy and save your battery, obviously. Now we're going to go in depth about the battery in a complete article. Battery's pretty good though. I just want to say that. The camera is something we're definitely going to go in depth to as well, so look for that section of the review. The camera, we were a little disappointed in. We'll just tell you that. Check out the full camera review. One thing that we can't ignore, though, is this micro SD card issue, because it's all about memory. You have all these great applications on Android Market to download. How much space do you have to download them to? Well, this memory card is 16 gigabytes, but you don't have 16 gigabytes install applications. What you actually have is 256 megabytes. It limits how much you can do with the game. There was talk about how the iPhone has some applications like Myst you can play on the iPhone and it's almost a gigabyte. You couldn't load that game on here because it doesn't have enough memory. Gold bronzish accents. What do you think of those? I'm not a huge fan. I'm also not a huge hater. It doesn't bother me too much. I think they were just trying to stand out and be different. And you know, HTC has the chin. Well, Motorola with the Droid and Verizon have their little inverted type of kind of chin of their own. I think they were just trying to stand out and be different, and it's not a bad attempt. And in terms of being pocketable, definitely 100%. But overall, the hardware comes highly recommended, and the screen just outshines everything. So it's not perfect, but right now this is the best Android phone hardware on the market. Yeah, there are a few issues, but it's worth it.